Greetings from Indian Space Research Organization. At the outset, let me convey regards from Dr. K. Sivan, Chairman ISRO and Secretary Department of Space India to each one of you. Myself, Shantanu Bhattavadekar. I am Director for Earth Observation Applications and Disaster Management Support Program Office, ISRO Headquarters, Bangalore. On behalf of Chairman ISRO, I am making a presentation on space technology applications for national development and governance. I will give you a brief overview of how space technology in India helps in the national development and governance through synergistic use of Earth observation, communication and navigation satellites to address the socio-economic development and fundamental priorities of the government and enable decision making at various levels. So, if you look at the vision of the space technology in India, we have harnessing the benefits of national development imperatives, catalyzing the socio-economic development and improving quality of life of citizens. We have the space segment where we have the strong constellation of Earth observation, communication and navigation satellites. To commensurate the space segment, we have a very vibrant ground segment for data acquisition and processing, generation of value added products, and also to supplement the space observations, we have very strong observation network of in situ instruments on the ground. At the same time, to see the optimum penetration of the space applications in various government and ministries, we have an institutional framework where we have the network of government ministries and departments collaborating with ISRO on the space applications, industry and academia, and we also have the cooperation with various international agencies for the space applications. And in the area of application services, we develop the advanced models and techniques. We do develop the web and mobile based applications and also disseminate the information through the web portals, geo portals and information systems to enable decision support and decision making at various levels in the government. If we see the space segment, as I told you about the constellation of satellites, in India we have the constellation of Earth observation, communication and the navigation satellites. Even in Earth observation, we have the constellation of thematic series of satellites. Like if you see the first one, we have the ResourceSat series and the Cartosat series, primarily intended for natural resource management and large scale mapping, and also to support the disaster management. We have two meteorological satellites, INSAT 3D and 3DR in orbit, which provides every 15 minutes the weather information, and a megatropic satellite which we have built in collaboration with French space agencies. These satellites provide data for weather forecasting and also for extreme weather events. We have OceanSat series of satellite and the SCATSat-1 and SARAL, basically to give information on the ocean state forecast and also give inputs for the cyclone warning. In communication sector, we have INSAT and GSAT series of satellites. They basically provide the connectivity and communication backbone for telecommunication and broadcasting, VSAT services, and also help in the disaster management in regard to the search and rescue and emergency communication. For the navigation, we have our own Indian regional constellation, that is called the NAVIC, which provides the position, navigation and timing services and the location based services. We have a payload called Gagan on three communication satellites, which is primarily used by Civil Aviation Ministry for safety of life applications. So, what space technology can do for national development and governance? It can provide vital inputs to leapfrog in the development. Space technology can act as a catalyst for economic development. It can serve as an enabler for societal transformation, and it can also help in enhancing the quality of life. But to really penetrate the space technology in the governance sector and also to bridge the gap between the technology and the end user, you need a very strong institutional framework. So, one side we have the technology, wherein we have the constellation satellites, we have the ground stations, we have applications and value added services. On the other side, we have the end users who are adopting the technology and putting this space application technology applications to operational use. But we need to have a very strong institutional mechanism or a framework which can provide the policy and programmatic guidelines. It can capture the user requirements. Then we need to translate those user requirements into payloads, and once we get the data from the satellites, we need to conduct the proof of concept studies, and once the concept is proven, we need to operationalize the applications and then transfer the applications to various stakeholder ministries, and of course do the handholding and capacity building in each of the application sector. So, now let me dwell on some of the space technology based application and services. As I was mentioning, in India we have the space applications and services which are tailored to meet the evolving needs and fundamental priorities of the government. Many of these applications are adopted by the central ministries and the state governments for operational use. And these space applications and services basically enable planning, periodic monitoring, mid-course correction and evaluation of developmental activities under the parlance of governance. So, this is the framework of space technology based applications. As I told, we have the constellation of optical and microwave, multispectral, multispatial and multitemporal data from these satellites. We have the digital elevation model available from our Cartosat-1 satellite. We have the in situ sensors and data collection platform, and of course, the navigation enabled positioning through our Navi constellation. All these data sets are integrated, and through the use of models and advanced techniques and algorithms, we support the applications primarily in 4 sectors or 4 verticals: the socio-economic security, where we address food, water, energy, health, shelter and infrastructure security. We do have one vertical on the sustainable development, where we address the resource conservation, impact assessment and climate change. Space technology based services are also supporting the disaster risk reduction and to build a disaster resilience community. Almost in all the phases of disaster, starting from preparedness, early warning, response and recovery, we support through these space applications. And the last vertical is about the governance, where the space technology is operationally being used for planning, monitoring, evaluation and decision making. So, let me dwell on few of the examples on each of these verticals. If we talk about the enabling food security, these are the 4 major applications I am going to give you an overview. The first one is the pre-harvest crop production estimation. This is a operational application which a Ministry of Agriculture is now carrying out for the past 15 years, wherein they provide the multiple in-season crop forecast using the temporal data sets from Earth observation satellites. So, we provide the multiple times forecast on the crop production during the entire cropping season, that is starting from the sowing till harvest. Multiple times in a season we provide the estimates of crop production. This helps the policy makers and decision makers to take decisions on the procurement and stock management for the food grains. If you see here, presently we are giving these crop production estimation for 8 major crops: rice, wheat, mustard, sugarcane, cotton, sorghum, jute and pulses. Likewise, the food grain crop production estimation, space technology also being used for building the inventory on horticultural crops. So, here apart from the crop inventory, we also use the space technology applications basically to identify the sites which are suitable for the expansion of horticultural crops, particularly in the areas which are underutilized. But unlike the food grain crops, the horticultural crops are short lived, they are perishable. So, we also need to plan how to minimize their losses. So, the geospatial technology is also being used basically to plan their stock, their storage and also the market areas nearby where they can be sold and consumed. If you really talk about the monitoring wastelands and degraded lands, this is a very vital application area which is basically targeted to bring more area under agriculture through reclamation. So, every 5 years we do the monitoring of the wastelands, we map the various categories of wasteland in India and also the different kind of degraded lands and also the process of degradation. So, this basically helps in arriving at the plans to reclaim these lands and improve the productivity and alleviate poverty. Another important component is basically the crop intensification, wherein instead of horizontally expanding the crops, you are doing the vertical expansion. So, how it is done? In particular in India, we have very successful program called Bringing Green Revolution in Eastern India, wherein after the Kharif harvest of these rice crops, we basically map the fallow lands, wherein after the harvest of Kharif rice, you have sufficient moisture available in those fields, and those fallow lands along with the sufficient moisture can be utilized basically for the cultivation of pulses and oil seeds. So, this way it allows you to extend the area of cultivation and utilize the fallow lands for growing the short duration pulses. This is one example on the enabling water security. Under this domain, in India, we generate the surface water body spreads every fortnight for the water bodies which are bigger than 2 hectares. So, all the surface water bodies which are bigger than 2 hectares are mapped every fortnight. We have also done the groundwater prospect mapping for the entire country at 1:50,000 scale, wherein the information is provided on the prospects of groundwater in terms of depth and also the yield range of the wells, how much yield the particular bore well or well will yield in terms of liters per minute. We also do the regular monitoring of the irrigation infrastructure in terms of reservoir sedimentation, monitoring the physical progress on how the entire irrigation infrastructure is being built in the country. I will give a few examples of this in the subsequent slides. And we also have a very comprehensive water resource information system in India comprising of more than 100 layers of thematic maps of relevance to the water information or water resources information. This is what I was talking about, the groundwater prospect information, wherein by integrating the multiple thematic maps or layers which are derived using the Earth observation satellite data in terms of lithology, in terms of geomorphology, the structures, the basically the hydrology, all these maps are integrated, and with the decision criteria we arrive at a groundwater prospect information. And this map, as I told you, gives information on the three parameters. One is the yield, how much yield is going to be produced by the well in terms of liters per minute, at what depth you need to go down in basically to get the yield, and also to recharge the groundwater we also identify the recharge locations. So, it not only helps in exploiting the groundwater from the various locations which are identified, at the same time we are also giving the recharge locations so as to sustainably use the groundwater. Now, such a database is available for the entire country on portable groundwater prospect zones in terms of depth and yield, and also the suitable sites for recharge structures. And this one example, we have shown that almost more than 3,50,000 wells have been drilled with 93% success rate, and almost more than 9,000 recharge structures have been constructed based on the information provided through this application. Another example of water security is the better use of irrigation potential. So, we are targeting basically per drop you can get more crop. So, irrigating field of every farmer and improving water use efficiency to provide per drop more crop. So, here using the high resolution data from the Earth observation satellite, first we monitor the progress, the physical progress of the irrigation infrastructure when it is being built. So, you can see here this is the canal which is you can say fully constructed. Now, this is the segment of the canal which is under construction, and these are the areas you can identify. Here there is a gap. So, this canal network is not completed yet. Here also you can see there are certain gaps in the construction. So, one is the physical monitoring of the irrigation infrastructure, and once the entire irrigation infrastructure is in place, it is designed basically for a use, and it is designed to basically support a certain level of irrigation potential in the country. So, if you see, after that we do the mapping of the Rabi areas, which is basically supported using this irrigation infrastructure, and then map the cropped area, and from after mapping from these cropped areas we derive the information that how much potential of the irrigation has been utilized, how much the irrigation has the potential to support the agriculture activity, and how much potential of the irrigation has been realized on ground. So, the benefit of this kind of application, it helps in identifying the critical gaps and also helps in the compliance monitoring and the performance assessment of the irrigation infrastructure. So, this one slide I am talking about how to enable the energy security. If you see, in India we have the target of achieving 175 gigawatt by 2022, and in this slide I am only speaking about the renewable energy sources like solar energy potential, the wind energy potential. So, using the solar insolation data from our INSAT 3D and 3DR satellites, we generate the solar energy potential maps every month. You can see from January to December how the solar energy potential is changing every month. Using the scatterometer data from our SCATSAT satellite, we also estimate the wind energy potential, particularly near the coast. We have generated the digital energy atlas, and using the insolation data, we provide the 48-hour forecast for solar insolation, and also using the scatterometer data provide the forecast on the wind speed for plant operators who are supplying power to the grid. And now for the government, we are developing the geospatial energy portal and various applications. We also have developed the mobile applications which are available even for the public for assessing the location specific solar and wind energy potential. Now let me dwell on some of the aspects of the sustainable development goals, how the space technology applications in India is in tune with the SDGs which are envisaged by the government. We are talking about the natural resource conservation, wherein almost 6 SDGs we are addressing. We are also talking about the disaster resilient community building, and in the sector of health and climate change induced impact, we are addressing 2 sustainable development goals, and also utilizing the potential of satellite communication technology, how we are supporting the capacity building SDGs through teleeducation and e-learning. So, these are the various aspects of supporting the sustainable development. In India, we have one program called Natural Resource Census. So, like human census, where we basically count the human population at a designed interval, here also we map the various natural resources. Maybe you talk about like land use, the snow and glaciers, the land degradation, wetlands, the geological features at a predefined interval. We are also doing the biennial assessment of the forest cover in India. The Forest Survey of India operationally utilizes the Earth observation satellite data, and once in 2 years they generate the forest state of the country. They are also Department of Biotechnology is also generating the information on the biodiversity in collaboration with ISRO. Another important aspect of sustainable development is basically to monitor the impacts of developmental activities on the environment. Here you can see this is one example where we have mapped the mining deviations. We will start from the 2007, 2011 and 2015, and you can see how the mining activity has increased over the years, and of course causing some sort of discomfort or problems for the environment. But this is the positive impact of the development activity, where in 2014 you can say this area is almost like fallow and devoid of any vegetation. But after the construction of a small tank here, basically a water harvesting structure, you can see how this area is now transformed into a green cover. So, this is a positive impact of the developmental activity. When I was talking about the natural resource census, this is basically provides the snapshot of country status of natural resources with a certain defined repeat cycle. So, like we do the land use land cover mapping on annual scale. So far we have the 16 years of data or 16 years of continuous data on an annual basis on land use land cover, and we also do the 5-yearly land use land cover on 50,000 scale. Geomorphology and lineament mapping is done once in 10 years. The snow and glaciers are mapped every year, wherein the wetlands mapping is also done every 5 years. And if you see soil, which does not change so dynamically, the soil mapping is carried out once in 10 years. So, these are some of the examples of the land use land cover map, which is a very vital input for many of the development activities and used by various sectors in the government. This is one example of the mapping of the salt affected soils, which needs to be reclaimed and brought back to use by agriculture. And this is another example of land degradation, where you can see the various categories of degraded lands have been mapped, and then of course we also propose the very many management plans for these degraded lands. Watershed is one of the important area for taking the development activities, because this is watershed is a natural hydrologic unit basically to carry out the development activities starting from ridge to the valley. Here you can see, utilizing the satellite images, the various thematic layers are generated like groundwater prospect map, the soil maps, the land use land cover, the drainage pattern is mapped, and then utilizing developmental criteria, we generate the land resource development plan and water resource development plan maps. So, these maps basically they study the potential and the constraint of the land and then suggest the optimum utilization of the land. That means the land where you can go for a single crop, the land where you can go for the double cropping, or the land which is suitable for doing the horticultural activities or doing a social forestry or community forest. So, considering the potential of the land, we decide that how best or how optimally the land could be utilized, and the local specific plans, by harmonizing the local wisdom of the farmers with the scientific knowledge, the developmental maps are generated. We have seen over the years that these local specific maps have helped in wasteland reclamation, they have decreased the fallow lands, increased the cropping intensity, and of course helped in improving the livelihood of the farmer community, and as well as have shown the visible impacts in improvement in the livestock. Once we do the watershed activity, we also carry out the regular monitoring of the implementation and impact assessment of the development activities. So, as I was telling you here, you can see in 2009, you can see this area is almost barren and devoid of any vegetation here. But in 2015, there was asset was created, basically a water harvesting structure was created, and which has yielded a very positive impact, and this entire area now is converted into an agricultural belt, and you can see the horticulture or the orchards have come up in this area. Similarly, here this area, as I was showing the example, this area you can see is also devoid of vegetation because of the water harvesting structure built here. Here also you can see the lot of greenery has increased, and area is now being utilized optimally for agricultural practices. This is another example in the sector of forestry, where I was talking about the biodiversity maps. This entire mapping has been done in collaboration with Department of Biotechnology, wherein the diversity of the forest has been mapped for taking the conservation measures. If you can see here, almost in 125 vegetation types have been mapped in the country, 6,000 species and database is available, and using various modeling techniques and also utilizing the ground information, we have generated the information on the biological richness and the disturbance areas, which are very vital for the planning the conservation measures. So, these biodiversity maps are available for the Western Himalayas in India and also for the Western Ghats, where we have a very rich bioresources in the country. Now, let me speak on the another important vertical of the space technology applications, that how the space technology and applications help in the management of natural disasters. Indian subcontinent is among the world's most disaster prone areas. Almost 12% of the land, that is something like 40 million hectare area in India, is flood prone. We have 7,500 kilometer coastline, which is cyclone prone. Over 65% of the land in India is drought prone, and 25% land is earthquake prone in the seismic zone of 4 and 5. And our Himalayas and the Western Ghats areas are very susceptible to the landslides. So, in India, we provide the space based disaster management support for floods, cyclone, drought, forest fire, landslides and earthquake. And using the space technology, we address almost all the phases of disaster, starting from preparedness, disaster event during the response of disasters, also help during the relief and rehabilitations and mitigation of disaster in India. If we talk about the preparedness, this is one area where I am talking about the cyclone early warning. We have an operational cyclone early warning system in India, where utilizing the space-based data from the INSET 3D and 3DR satellites, and also from the scatterometer data from our SCATSAT satellite, we have a modeling called cyclogenesis. Basically, how the genesis of cyclone we study, and we estimate basically the center of the cyclone with a lead time of almost 2 to 3 days. Then through the models we predict the track, how the cyclone is basically proceeding towards the coast. Here we have in-house developed software using the Lagrangian track prediction model, and we also predict the intensity of the cyclone using the NCEP operational HWRF model forecast. So, with a lead time of 2 to 3 days, we are able to predict the cyclone very accurately, its track, and at what intensity and at what time it is going to hit the land. So, this one example you can see, this is of the cyclone Amphan in May 2020, when the satellite observations basically help in continuous monitoring of the short-lived cloud processes, and because of the thermal infrared images, it is possible to map and identify the cyclonic activity even during both daytime and night time. Another operational activity where we support the various government agencies related to the forest fire. Here the near real time forest fire locations are disseminated to Forest Survey of India and the State Forest Department within 30 minutes of the satellite data acquisition. So, you can see here we have the operation system where we publish or we identify first the forest fire locations, and then within 30 minutes of the satellite data acquisition, these are published on our web portal Bhuvan, and then disseminated to the forest authorities for initiating the action. And after the forest fires, we also carry out the burnt area assessment using the satellite data. So, here in this you can see here under the yellow circle, you can see the area which are basically burnt because of the forest fire. So, this is an operational activity which you are supporting in India for the last almost now 2 decades. Also, to help for a better preparedness in the disaster management, we prepare the hazard zonation maps. Like if you can see here, this is a map on the flood hazard zonation. We also have the map on the landslide hazard zonation. So, these basically hazard zonation maps are prepared using the historical data of disaster occurrence, its frequency and severity. So, we from our archives, we study how the flood has occurred and what was the frequency of occurrence and what was the severity of the floods over the past many years, let us say 50 to 20 years, and then prepared the hazard zonation maps basically which gives the information about the areas which are very highly vulnerable for the floods and the areas which are moderately vulnerable or are at low risk. Similarly, the landslide hazard zonation maps are also prepared in India in the Himalayan region and also in the Western Ghats. Recently, we also started working on the drought vulnerability. As you may be knowing, the drought is a slow creeping disaster, but here using the historical data on the drought events in the past and also the rainfall data sets available historically, we prepare the drought vulnerability maps, wherein giving information about the areas which are less vulnerable to the areas which are highly vulnerable to the drought conditions. This is one example of the near real time flood inundation. So, once we receive the data from the Earth observation satellites, within 3 hours we are generating the flood inundation maps. During the disaster events, particularly of the floods or inundation due to flood and cyclone, these maps basically are generated within 3 hours of the data acquisition and then disseminated to the concerned agencies for carrying out the response measures and the relief activities. During the disasters, we also support through our satellite communication network, as well as we have certain devices specifically built to support during the disaster events. If you can see here, we have the cyclone warning dissemination system, which is actually placed along the coast. This system is there, and which utilizing the potential of the satellite communication and also the cyclone warnings which are derived through our Earth observation satellites, the warning is disseminated to the concerned agencies. We also have the DTH based warning dissemination, wherein the information about the impending disasters is basically broadcasted through DTH to various people who are basically watching the television programs utilizing the DTH. So, even in a scenario where you are watching the programs, and when this sort of alarm is issued, basically the program will be stopped and the warning will be issued through this particular DTH based warning dissemination system. We have also built a distress alert terminal for fishermen. This is a very unique device, which is basically a floatable device, and it is carried by the fishermen on their boats. So, in case whenever the boat is in trouble or the boat is sinking, this device will not sink. This is a floatable terminal, and immediately as soon as it touches the water, it will start basically transmitting the messages while the boat is in danger. So, more than 1800 such distress alert terminals have been provided to the fishermen through the Indian Coast Guard. Also, during the disaster events, whenever we have the terrestrial network is in problem, or terrestrial network is not working because of the disaster, we have the MSS type basically portable satellite phones which are given to the concerned authorities who are in the field for taking the relief and rehabilitation measures. This is an example of the satellite communication potential. You can see how using the satellite communication we are providing the services like telemedicine and teleeducation network. So, the telemedicine network, wherein basically the hospitals which are in the remote and inaccessible areas, they are connected to the super specialty hospitals in the big towns or in the metros, and the doctor sitting in these specialty hospitals basically can give the teleconsultations to the people who are in the remote and rural areas. Similarly, using the communication technology, we are also providing the services for delivering the education, that is basically called the teleeducation network. Here basically we support the primary and secondary school education, technical and professional education, distance education, adult education, teachers training and vocational training. So, both these programs, particularly for the telemedicine and teleeducation, have been highly successful in India to reach the services to the basic services like health and education to the remote areas in the country. This one example I would like to show about the potential fishing zones, and this is one example where I am just demonstrating the synergistic use of all the three satellite technologies: the Earth observation satellite, the communication satellite, and the navigation satellite. In India, we have, as I told, we have almost 7,500 kilometer coastline, and more than 7 million people are dependent on fishing for their livelihood. So, using the data from our ocean set, we basically first derive the chlorophyll distribution. Basically, we identify the chlorophyll in the ocean using the ocean color monitor on board the ocean satellite, and also utilizing the sea surface temperature. Presently, we are using or deriving the sea surface temperature from the NOAA satellite, and integrating the information on the chlorophyll and also the SST. We identify the areas in the ocean which have the potential for a good fish catch. And in India, we have almost 1200 fish landing centers where this information on the potential fishing zones is disseminated. And for the past 20 years, this operational activity has given a lot of benefits in terms of the increased fish catch per unit effort, which has increased by 2 to 4 times. It has reduced the search time by 60 to 70%, of course, resulting in the saving of fuel, and it has improved the livelihood of the fishermen. So far we are providing and disseminating this information, these maps through various digital platforms, but now the same potential fishing zone application has also been enriched using our meteorological satellites and also the navigation satellites. So, if you see here, a specific device now has been built, basically which is basically connected on the boat of the fisherman, and it is connected to the mobile of the smartphone or the mobile which basically a fisherman is carrying along with him. So, this gives information. So, directly these potential fishing zone maps are disseminated on his smartphone, and also we are providing, using our Navi constellation, the navigation support to the fishermen, that how to reach the areas basically where he will find a good fish catch. And also using the meteorological satellites, we are also identifying the rough weather alerts, or we are providing the information on the weather, as well as if any probability of there that the fisherman is going to face the rough weather conditions in the sea. It also helps in giving the information in advance about the approaching international boundary. That means, in case the fisherman is accidentally approaching the international boundary, because we have got the navigation tools, much before he approaches the international boundary, the alert is given on the mobile about his location and how close he is now to the international boundary. So, I am going to speak about the two geoportals, or you can say the two disseminating data dissemination platforms which we have in India. The first one is called the Bhuvan. This is basically a geospatial data collaboration platform. So, wherein you can visualize the Earth observation satellite data, and it also acts as a data and product clearhouse and provides whatever the thematic information and various layers we have generated for various central government agencies, the state government agencies, and also for the NGOs, and the thematic database, what has been the outcome of various space applications, is hosted on the Bhuvan portal. This also provides a platform for the various agencies in India basically to do online mapping, as well as collaborate with ISRO with regard to their data sets and for integrating in various application domains. If you can see here, in India today we have more than 95,000 registered users who are utilizing this platform, and almost 95 million tiles are transacted every month, and 900 GB of data flow. And this particular Bhuvan portal almost hosts more than 200 applications. So, this is primarily for the Earth observation satellite data. Likewise, we also have another geoportal called MOSDAQ, which is basically a repository for space based weather and ocean data. So, apart from archiving the meteorological data and the oceanographic data, it also provides information on the cyclone and track and intensity forecast over Indian Oceans. Various extreme weather events like cloudburst, you can see the half hourly alerts are provided, and also the intense rainfall also given every half an hour. So, this particular MOSDAQ website anyway can visit basically to get the weather forecast, which is provided 24 hours, 48 hours and 72 hours in advance at 5 kilometer resolution. We also provide the sea state forecast almost for you can say every 6 hours for the 5 days. So, this is the my last slide, which basically talks about the Peru, what are the potential space applications which are possible. In the Peru, as you know, you have the agricultural land, which is almost 18.5%, the forest area in Peru almost 50%, and the coastline is 2,400 kilometers long. So, in the area of natural resources, there is a huge potential in Peru for the space technology applications in agriculture, in the forest, water resources, and also in the ocean resources. And also, being a coastal state, you have a lot of potential for space applications in the domain of disaster management, the floods, landslides, tsunami and the earthquake. So, this was in a nutshell. I wanted to give an overview how the space technology applications in India have been operationally utilized for the past many years, and how it is helping the various sectors of the central government and the state governments. Thank you very much.